Hello everyone, welcome, I'm Robert, and today I want to discuss Call of Kilforth. And I previously made a video about Gloom of Kilforth, and here's what I've done so far. Okay, so I received my Kickstarter copy a few weeks ago, played a couple games of this, and I had some doubts about the new mechanics, so I went back and tabled Gloom of Kilforth, the original in the trilogy, because I wanted to compare it a bit more and just kind of refresh my memory on how the original plays before I played this further. Okay, so I made a video there where I describe Gloom of Kilforth. I still love Gloom of Kilforth, by the way, and I played it for the first time a couple of years ago. That hasn't changed. And if you want a bit of a breakdown of that game a bit more, feel free to watch that video. So now that I played that a few times, now I went ahead and put this on the table again and played a couple more games. Okay, and now I want to discuss the pros and cons of this versus Gloom of Kilforth, and how it compares in certain areas. All right. So I want to first start by mentioning the new mechanics. Okay, so there's a couple new mechanics here. So there's gonna be a ship mechanic that encompasses a couple things. So you're gonna get a new card that you start the game with, and it's gonna be called the Galleon card. Okay, so this card gives you a couple more actions, so you can veil it to gain a new, to gain a move action point. Okay, so this effectively gives you an extra move action every turn, and that drastically changes the pace of the game. All right. That's something that you don't really have access to at the beginning with the original, more simpler Gloom of Kilforth. Okay, so that's one of the aspects of the ship mechanic, but you can also use it to sync ships that are distributed around the map randomly at the beginning of the game. Okay, now, much like in Gloom of Kilforth, the structure of the game is the same. You generate a map, and you have about 25 days to level up your one hero character that you control in order to beat the ancient at the end. So the knight deck acts as your timer, and you have to move around the map, and you need to level up sufficiently, and you have to complete your saga chapters to defeat the ancient. So that foundation from the original still there. So on top of that, you have the ship mechanics. Now you also have the resources, which is new. All right, so these resources are going to be distributed. So there's 6 of each. So there's fish, metal, stone, and wood. All right, 4 types of resources, and they each each map area will have one resource token of its corresponding type added at the beginning of the game. So the forest areas will all get one, and they will all get one wood token. All the ocean areas will get a fish token. The plains areas will get stone, and the mountain will get the mountain area will get the iron or metal. Okay, so now, what do these tokens do? You can spend an action to collect them, and the wood token lets you remove obstacles. The fish lets you heal 1 health point. The stones let you gain 1 gold, and this lets you load your ship with cannons to make it more powerful. Or you can also use it to add 1 extra die to your fight. Okay, so that's what the resources do, and there's many cards that reference them and reward them. Okay, so it's not the only way. You don't only access them by picking them up from the map. All right. And they are also intrinsically tied to the ancient, or the new ancients, when their specific type of territory gets turned to gloom. They'll also take the manipulate the resources. All right. depending on the type of location that's removed. All right, so they'll mess with the resources in the map. Okay. There's the resources and the ships. Like I said at the beginning, they're gonna be distributed around the map, and you'll also have rewards when you sink them. Right, so you can use your galleon. You can avail your galleon to sink a ship that has equal or less power than your galleon. All right, and there's ways of increasing your galleon's power. Your galleon starts with 2 power, and there's ways of increasing it so that you can get the ship rewards. Okay, and also the ancient will you have an extra incentive of sinking ships, because the ancient will be more powerful at the end of the game if you don't sink ships of a certain faction. The ships that are randomly distributed around the map come in 4 factions. Okay. Another new mechanic also is the faction aspect. You flip this faction token, all right, at the beginning of the game, and you start with the Sea Dogs or the Blue Drakes. All right. So Sea Dogs, Blue Drakes, and that's gonna influence the outcome of certain events, certain night cards, and so on. So there's definitely a lot of more layers here compared to the original Gloom of Kilforth. All right. On top of that, there's also certain territories that you have to pay attention to. For example, if you move your character card here, you get an extra action point when you move in it. So you have to pay extra close attention when you move around the map. Here, for example, enemies have an extra health. Here, when you move into this territory, you lose an action point. Okay, so it's labeled there. So there's a lot more layers that you have to pay attention to. Another new interesting mechanic is the outposts. All right, so when you level up your class, okay, you're gonna have at level 1 you have the option of taking a card that lets you build an outpost, and you have to collect certain types of resources. So let me show you here. So that's it. There's an alternative level 1 card that you can pick if you decide not to pick that one, right? You can pick that one, or you can pick this one for the first level of your character. So when you pick this card, you then have to make sure that you collect those resources, and it'll let you build this outpost. All right, and you can establish that outpost on one of the territories, and it'll let you do market actions in that territory, and also you're gonna be able to veil the outpost, and all outposts, depending on your class, they'll have a different ability. So for the Wizard's Tower, for my character, which by the way, I had to flip my character because of the ancient battle. It tells you to basically get rid of your class card at the beginning of the battle. But I got this class, right, Arcane, for magic user. That was my merfolk magic user. Okay, so I went ahead and picked this. Okay, and you can veil it, and you can add a success to a test in the same territory or in any adjacent location. So there's an interesting layer there where if you decide to go this route, it does take work or head. It's a lot of actions that you're gonna invest in gathering the resources, and then putting that outpost somewhere, okay, on the map. All right, but if done right, it can pay off. All right, it can pay dividends, but your mileage will vary. All right, and in some cases, with this ancient that I decided to face for this game, all right, the Pontiff of Dread, if you read their ability, it says that you have to sacrifice your class card, which I just show you there. I just flipped it basically, and you have to sacrifice 1 medal. And if you can't, then you're eliminated from the game. All right. And you also have to pay attention to other ancients, because you might be required to build an outpost, right? If you don't build an outpost before you face the ancient, you're gonna be required to lose. All right, so if you do decide to get this game and face ancients, you have to pay extra close attention to the ancient ability at the beginning of the game, all right, because it will influence the route that you take, all right. Also the factions of the ships. So for example, this guy, he gains 1 extra health for each Sea Dog ship, and these are the Sea Dogs, right? So if you don't, for any Sea Dog ship that you don't sink, he's gonna gain an extra health at the end, all right? So as you can see, there's a lot of extra things that you have to pay attention to in this, all right? Now, are they worthwhile? Okay, so that's the question. All of these new things, are they worthwhile versus just the more streamlined experience of Gloom of Kilforth? And my answer is that I do think that they are, but it depends. All right. So if you want a bit more of a bit of extra meatiness and just at the cost of a slight amount of extra visual clutter and rules, this does really shake up the formula of Gloom of Kilforth really well. All right, it really offers a distinct experience. Is it better? I would not say necessarily that it's better, but it is different, and I do like the pirate theme, and I will say this: the marine and pirate theme does shine through here, okay? Between the flavor text, the choice of cards, the type of loot that you're gonna acquire, the races that you were provided, the classes, okay? The quests, the allies that you gain, the theme here does shine through. I'll say that, all right? And once you do get comfortable, if you're already very comfortable with this system and you rarely have to reference rules, this is just a nice breath of fresh air. However, the reason why I originally went back and played Gloom of Kilforth before putting this back on the table is because my initial impressions were not that great, and that's because I had a 2-year gap since I came back to this system, all right? And a couple years ago I played this extensively. I played this like I think 6 to 8 times, the original Gloom of Kilforth, right? So I thought I had a pretty good idea, and refreshing myself on the rules was not very fun, to be honest. But even after reading the rulebook, I'm making a little cheat sheet. My initial impressions were not that great because, gosh, there's just so much going on there's so many things that you have to pay attention to, and it almost, I might as well just had been a new player to this system, because it had been so long since I played Gloom of Kilforth that this was a bit overwhelming. The first game that I played, I did not play with the extra mechanics, the ships, the resources. I skipped that. Okay. I just kept the game simple just to kind of refresh myself. I did have a nice time. However, you really can't do that here, maybe for like 1 game just to familiarize yourself. But beyond that, you're really missing out on a lot of the interactions here. There's many quests and loot, titles, spells, allies, rewards. There's a lot of things that reference resources, ship tokens, your galleon ship. There's effects that unveil or untap your galleon or interact with your galleon. So if you decide not to include those extra mechanics, okay, that you're gonna find at the end of the rule book here. Okay, so the new mechanics, it's all just a couple pages, which I appreciate. All right, if you want to add the new extra mechanics, you just have to read 2 pages in the rulebook. That's it. Okay, so at least that's not that bad. All right, so you're gonna have to read only those 2 pages and integrate that. But for a new player, that could be a lot. All right, and I almost felt like a new player coming back to this system, because you have to pay attention. When you do your turn-to-turn decisions, all right, you're gonna have to factor in the ships, so your galleon, when to use your galleon ability, the resources, and the the ancient abilities, and also the extra. When you look at the maps, all right. So in the original, the only thing that you had to pay attention to was there's certain territory cards that are linked, okay? So I can move from here to here as if they were adjacent, basically, all right? So when you lay out the map, that's the only thing you have to pay extra attention to. But here, now you have to pay really close attention, because you might have you're laying out your plan of how you're going to move around the map, and then there's a certain spot where you lose or gain an action when you move, so you have to pay extra close attention, and that can be a lot for a new player, all right? And I had a bit of a poor experience on my second game of this, all right? So I played that first game with the simple rules, great. I go to play my second game, I add all the resources and the ships, and I was just a bit overwhelmed, and the ship mechanics were not super clear initially, all right? I was having a hard time understanding the action economy and whether it's even worthwhile spending actions to sink ships. But that was due to my rustiness with the system. Okay, so I'm glad that I went back and played Gloom of Kilforth. Okay, first, because once I played that a couple of times and then came back to this, I thoroughly enjoyed this a whole lot more. Okay, so I'll say that. I really appreciated how the galleon really changes the fact that it gives you that extra movement point at the beginning is really powerful. Okay. Now, I'll say this, the pacing of the game does change significantly because of that. A lot of the times in the original Gloom of Kilforth, it came down to the wire, to the last action. You really don't have a lot of time to mess around exploring, because, the days, the night deck is going to run out, okay? And you're going to be pressed to, complete all of your goals before you face the Ancient. But because of that extra galleon ability, I do feel a bit more free to explore. And in all of my games, I didn't really go past 15 or 16 days before facing the Ancient. And there's 25 cards in the night deck, okay? Well, I think up to 20, I think the longest I went was 20. And I even saw a playthrough by Made Me on the Table, where he completed the game on 11 days, all right? When I saw that for the first time, I was like, no way, did he play something wrong? That sounds insane to me. Like, when I saw that he finished a game and beat the Ancient within 11 days, I thought that could not be. Like, how can you beat the Ancient in 11 days? And it's all because of this, folks. The Galleon, just that extra movement point, it just drastically changes the action economy here. Another interesting thing is that gold felt a lot more plentiful. I had amounts of gold that I would never have in the original Gloom of Kilforth, because gold is just so tight when you play without variants, right? Like I said in the original review, I don't play with a variants, right? I just play the pure game, and gold was very tight. It was a commodity. Here, it still is tough at the beginning, but like, there were points where I had more gold than I could do anything with, all right? So that felt kind of empowering, not gonna lie, all right? Because it's kind of sucked sometimes in the original that you really didn't have a lot of gold to mess around with. You had to be very calculating with how you utilize your gold, but here, there were, and I played with different classes, and different races, and yeah, every time I had a lot more gold than in the original Gloom of Kilforth, okay? So I'll say this about Call of Kilforth and just the system in general, right? The more that I've played it, all right, because I went through that, I went through the trouble of like learning the system, and I still stand by that the system is just not easy to learn. It's very prone to making mistakes. There's a ton of exceptions and fiddliness and weird like interactions that you have to memorize how it works. I still stand by that, but now that I went through, I've played this a bunch, and I went through the trouble of internalizing the system properly, I have just enjoyed this purely. The last game that I played before recording this, which is this one with the Merfolk magic user, it was just pure gaming bliss. I basically just lost myself for a couple hours, just no music, no nothing, just playing this, exploring. and planning out my turns, and the experience that this offers is amazing, but you do have to be aware of the caveats. The rules, I still think that unfortunately it's just a poor experience, like internalizing and learning this system. And one thing that doesn't help Call of Kilforth, unfortunately, is that the new rules, the new advanced rules with the ships, they felt kind of vague at times. I did have other rules questions, like there's some card interactions, like the way some of the cards are written, right? And just kind of thinking from like the perspective of someone who is picking this game up for the first time, right? And they don't have a whole lot of board gaming experience. So if you read the cards verbatim, some cards say, search for a card in the deck and put it in, in where in a place on the table. And they don't explicitly say that you need to shuffle the deck after, or sometimes it says search, sometimes it says draw. So the way that some of the effects are written, they're not super clear. And like, of course, if you've played a ton of war games, I think you can infer or assume that the designer meant you're supposed to shuffle the deck after, or you're supposed to draw cards from the top of the deck before putting it in your territory or whatever, and then shuffling the deck after. So I think you can infer it, but that lack of clarity and that muddiness with the rules and the mechanics, like I just really wish, I'll put it like this, I really wish that the clarity of the rules and the attention to detail with how the cards are written was as good as the art, folks. If it was, this would be a 10 out of 10, like no question to me. I gave the original 8 out of 10. I don't tend to discuss ratings in my games, all right? I just tell you whether I like it or not, and things that you might like, things that you might not like about the game, all right? So that was the original what I gave the original. Great game, just rules, wasn't a fan of the rules, basically. But this is a bit exacerbated here with the new mechanics. But okay, now to counter that, I'll say this, all right? Like I said, once you get past the rules, this is pure gaming bliss. I did thoroughly enjoy this, and I'm not gonna put the game away after I'm recording. After I'm done recording this, I'm gonna play this one more time, at least. And the only reason why I'm gonna put it away after is because there's a few other games that I want to play before the end of the year. All right, but I do recommend this. So just to summarize, okay, I do recommend this, but only if you are already familiar with the Gloom of Kilforth system and you just want you want the new mechanics. This does really shake up the formula tremendously, all right, and adds more, and it's not just the new mechanics, it's more the setting, the theme, the pirate and maritime theme, and the mechanics. You have the resources, the ships, the action economy is just different. The economy with gold period is just different. The night cards are interesting, they're pretty punishing sometimes. So this really does shake up the formula, but I only recommend it if you're already comfortable with that system, okay? I strongly advise against this being your entry in the system, and that's because it might leave a bad impression, okay? It might leave you with more rules questions, and I don't want to, like, the foundation of the game already, it's prone to having weird rules interactions that are not answered immediately by the rulebook, and I don't want you to run into more of that stuff with the new mechanics. I think your first entry should be Gloom of Kilforth. Now, I do wish I had tried Shadows of Kilforth, and I'm really considering getting it just because I do love the system so much, folks. I just have to be honest about the shortcomings, okay? But I do love this a lot, and I do want to get Shadows of Kilforth, and I want to see how it compares, okay? Even though the Asian theme doesn't attract me that much, I do want to get that eventually, but do get this if you're already comfortable with that system and you just want more of the same to some extent, and you want new mechanics, and you want to keep the system fresh. This really does a great job at that. It's just not the best way to introduce it to a new player, and you really don't have the option. I mean, you could, but like if you want to play this without the resources or the ships, it's just not going to work very well. So many of the cards reference the new mechanics. So you're gonna have rewards and loot that you're not gonna know what to do with them, and they're not gonna help you push forward towards the goal, because these cards reference all this stuff and you can't really do anything with them. So yeah, so keep that in mind. Only get into this system if you into this entry. I recommend personally if you are already familiar with Gloom of Kilforth. Okay, but for if you're a Gloom of Kilforth enthusiast and you like the first two, I can recommend this 100%. All right, I do enjoy this. I'm gonna play this more before I put it away after I'm recording this. Once you get past the rules, it is pure gaming bliss. As I mentioned earlier, I just wish I had the attention to detail with the rules clarity, and the rulebook was as good as the art. Oh god, like this would be godlike 10 out of 10 if it was the case, folks. But a couple other nitpicks, by the way, before I log off. So they didn't include a stealth token, all right, like the original. Nitpick. Apparently, what people do is they just put their model face down like this, but I don't mind that. It's not that big a deal, but keep in mind there's no stealth tokens in this entry. And also another nitpick is I thought that the reference, the new reference, I wish that they had included. I wish that they had included the new steps, all right, because the setup doesn't include the advanced rules steps, all right. So the reference guide that they give you here is a bit incomplete, honestly, because they don't include the new advanced setup steps, all right. So you're still gonna have to reference the rulebook if you want to do the full setup, and it also doesn't include the what each of the resources do. It would have, I really would have appreciated if they included in the reference guide what each of these resources do. Okay, so again, like attention to detail. Like I don't know how there's enough room here. They could have included a little cheat sheet to remind you what each resource does. Okay, and so and finally, and this is just from like the Kickstarter, right? I was a bit. I have not used the miniatures that I got yet because apparently, and I didn't realize this, the miniatures are mostly based on, or I think all of them are based on the class cards, and so there's no merfolk, there's no centaur. Like, so if you prefer the illustration from the race card, you're gonna, you're not gonna be able to really have your miniature reflect the race that you're playing as. Only the class card. So I was a bit disappointed. I have not used the miniatures yet. I've just used the standees because I typically just lean more towards representing my character as the race, not the class. But that's a nitpick. That's just personal preference. Okay. But yeah, folks. So that's my thoughts on Call of Kilforth. Just love this, but I had to list those caveats because I don't want you to have a negative impression of this system if this is your intro to it, because this system, folks, it can offer such a rich and amazing experience once you get past the couple shortcomings with the rules. And one thing that I didn't mention in my Gloom of Kilforth review was that in the one I shot earlier was that this is one of the few adventuring RPGs that has the benefit of being soloable with just one character. You don't have to control multiple characters. Very few games in my collection allow for this, all right? Typically, you're supposed to control a party of characters, but this doesn't need that, all right? So this has a huge edge in that regard, okay? And so yeah, love this, love the illustrations, love the theme, mix about the rules and some of the lack of clarity in certain things, and the accessibility for a new player into the system. Those are the things that I have an issue with for the most part. But yeah, folks, those are my thoughts on Call of Kilforth. So I want to thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comments section. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll go ahead and play this again before I put it away after recording this, and I'll see you in the next one.